Gurdjieff said that we're in a jail, in our own little jail cell, locked away. And the only sane thing that anybody would do in that situation is try to find a way of escape. But this is a very special jail cell. It's a cell where any attempt to escape actually makes a cell stronger. So if you try and file away at the iron bars on the window, the bars grow thicker and the file makes no mark on them. Or if you try and dig a tunnel, the concrete in the floor gets thicker, so you can never ever dig through it. Or if you try and pick the lock in the door, the lock becomes more and more complex. This is the kind of jail we live in. And the greatest mistake that most people who follow some kind of spiritual path make is that they believe that by somehow fighting against this jail, against the material of the cell itself, they can free themselves from it. Well, this jail cell also has another special property, and that is the more you ignore it, the weaker it becomes. And ignore might not be quite the right word, but it's probably the best word I can think of at this moment in time. Maybe the less attention you give it, the more delicate this jail cell becomes. It's like Merlin, who is under the spell of Mab, the witch. And he finds that the only way he can free himself from Mab is essentially to ignore her. So it presents a kind of dilemma. And the resolution of the dilemma goes against almost everything we've ever been told. So, on the one hand, we feel that we need to launch an escape project. But as I've already mentioned, any attempts to break out of this cell are going to just make this cell stronger. This is of course an analogy for the more you try and modify your behavior through some so-called act of will, the more your behaviors that you deem undesirable will strengthen. You must have noticed that by now if you've ever tried to work in that way. So, excuse me, I've got a cold. So where was I? Yeah, so you cannot just decide in your head to free yourself from the prison that you find yourself in. And let's describe that prison a little bit, the psychological prison that we inhabit. Well, first of all, it's built of habits. These habits are fairly persistent. So we might have a habit that we eat a little bit too much, or we might have a habit that we like to drink a little bit too much, or we might have a habit that we are always making big plans and then never carry them out. You know, 1,000,001 habits that we have picked up along the way. Some of them sort of foisted upon us when we were children, and others that we've willingly created ourselves. Well, I say willingly, there is no such thing as willingly. Let's get that one out of the way. There's no such thing as free will. I've done a video on that. If you're not convinced at the end of that, then please continue to consider that you are a strong-willed person who can achieve anything they want to. The reality of our situation is that at any one moment in time, the strongest desire will always predominate, will always cause us to, or move us to action. So if your strongest desire right now is to lose some weight, then you will not eat food. If your strongest desire is to have something to eat, then you will eat, and to hell with the diet. And you have no control over that. Those desires are completely autonomous. So here we're building a picture of the prison that we live in. And we have other elements of the prison, which are our relationship with other people, our codependencies, the fact that we feel we always have to please people, maybe, or the fact that we think that everyone is a total asshole, or the fact that we, whatever it is, whatever our signature relationship is with other people. But it will be just another brick in the prison cell wall. And then we have, dare I say it, all the nonsense that we've picked up from self-help books, spiritual teachers, people selling enlightenment, some ready-made formulaic sort of thing that allows you to escape the prison. Because we all want freedom. What is driving all of us all the time, very often in totally inappropriate ways, but nonetheless, is this desire for freedom. Some people think they can get freedom through money. Other people think they can get freedom by basically just abandoning everything and just hitting the road. Life does not let us off like that. It doesn't matter what route you take, in the ordinary sense anyway, to try and achieve freedom, life will come back and bite you in the bum. That's just the way it works. Life will not, you're not here for your sake. You're here for the sake of life. And life will not let you off the hook and give you a free ride. Even the wealthiest, in fact, particularly the wealthiest and the most famous and so on, have typically the most miserable lives, because they are surrounded with so much crap that they have to look after. Ironical, really, isn't it? Anyway, to get back to the main point, we're after freedom. We're in a jail cell. The jail cell gets stronger the more we try and attack it. But we have a secret that we could never ever have figured out on our own. And this secret tells us that all we have to do is to treat the cell with a certain amount of contempt. Now, contempt, is probably not quite the right word, but it portrays the essence of what I'm trying to say here. And that is that all these things that we think are so important, particularly after we've had goes at spiritual training or followed so-called spiritual teachers and so on, the secret is to relax in your cell for a start. Have a look at the bars. You might find them to be a little bit more attractive than you thought they were. Have a look at the concrete floor. Feel it. Lay on it. Do whatever. But do not see it as a prison. Easier said than done, of course, but it can be achieved. And what you'll find is that as you focus less on trying to get out of the prison cell, the more you will find yourself free from it. And yes, I'll say it again, as I've said in other videos. The way of truth is just absolutely riddled with contradictions or paradoxes. And then you learn slowly but surely how to free yourself from this cell. And it goes like this. You just look at whatever appears. Whatever appears is okay. So you have to drop societal conditioning. Again, you can't just drop it, it's something you have to work on. But you have to drop societal conditioning, you have to drop moral conditioning. You have to drop notions of what is right and wrong. Yeah. Maybe do a video on that one all on its own, because that's probably going to offend more people than anything else. And I don't make a living doing this. I'm doing it really just because I've been prompted by someone I know to do it. So it doesn't really matter to me whether people become offended by what I say or not. But you have to drop your notions of right and wrong. Because while you've got notions of right and wrong, you're going to get upset all the time. And then the prison walls start to close in again. And you have to learn to just be able to observe. This is not theoretical for me. This morning I received some news that for me was quite upsetting. But hey, that's life. Upsetting things can happen almost every day sometimes. So there it was. I was upset. I let myself be upset. I didn't try and rationalize it away. You silly boy, you should be beyond this kind of thing, and and I watched it, and actually I grew to like it in the end. Strange thing, isn't it? Actually, the energy of being upset. And within about an hour it had gone, and now I don't care. In fact, not caring is a very, very good habit to cultivate. In fact, one of the guys I knew in the past, someone I had a huge amount of respect for, I remember I found his behaviour very, very odd, and I just said to him one day, I said, "You don't care about anything, do you?" He said, "No, of course not." I was shocked at the time, still being a sort of good Christian boy. So, to summarise this whole thing, I know it's rambled a bit, but it's quite hard to explain really. You're in a prison cell that has been both made for you and that you make yourself. The prison cell is the parallel to the psychological prison that you live in, where you have no freedom of movement, or very little, and where you are always upset about something, maybe depressed about something. Every now and then you get happy, but you have no real control over what's going on within you. So you're sort of like a puppet. Anyway, the prison cell is this psychological prison that you live in. And the harder you fight against it, the stronger it becomes. And so the secret is to just look at it. And when you see yourself manifesting in a particular way, just look at it. Try and understand it. Now that's a whole other story. The understanding part of this is not something I've talked about so far, but observation is not enough in actual fact. There has to be understanding as well. But observation is a good place to start. and enjoy whatever comes your way. You know, for me this morning, the particular thing that upset me, years ago would have ruined my week. I would have been so angry for days. As it was, I just went right into it, and I sat with it, and I looked at it, I observed it, I felt it, until it had, and what I did was I sucked all the life out of it until it died. Now I'm stronger for that, and it has died. Instead of a few years ago, if such a thing happened, it sucking the life out of me and me partially dying. So that's how we need to treat it, and never ever ever fight against what is happening within you. Accept it, because we all have this idea that within us is a little man. There is no little man inside of you. Again, another video maybe at some point, but there is no little man inside of you. What is happening to you is what you are. Well, on that scary note, because you know where it's going, I'll sign off.